Today I'm going to talk to you about the third technique that we're going to learn for our challenge on learning different techniques of processing images to achieve creative and artistic effects. This technique that I'm going to show you is about creating high contrast images, and contrast is that difference again between the darkest darks of a scene and the lightest lights of a scene. But what we're going to do is we're going to go extreme with this. You may notice the presets on the right where you can create high contrast looks. You might look at creating high contrast this way by dragging your sliders. But what we're going to actually do today is use a new section that we really haven't talked about, and this is the tone curve section. By default, this section looks like this. What we're going to do is we're going to change the way that it works by changing the mode by clicking this little button here and changing this to strong contrast. So I'm taking the point curve to strong contrast, and I'm clicking this editing in point curve mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these curves. Now I have these different points, and what I'm going to do is drag them down. You can right click on them and delete those control points just to make this a little bit easier. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to drag the left hand side of this all the way down and the right hand side of this all the way up, and I'm going to drag this over a little bit to sort of play with creating the highest contrast image that I can. Something about here ends up working out pretty cool. But what you'll notice is I have this really neat effect that's happening here where the highlights are very, very bright and the shadows are very, very dark. And then back in the background here, I've almost completely lost all of my shadows. Again, I'm going to delete some of these control points to make this a little bit easier. Let me delete that one. This should be a little bit easier now. So what essentially I'm doing is I'm playing with where these points are to get something that looks pretty good. So I see a lot of detail up here. I see detail in here, and it's really neat. I'm really accentuating the differences between the highlights and shadows here. And the only thing now that I don't like about this is I have a very specific part of this image that is very dark. So I'm going to leave this exactly how it is, and I'm going to go to my Radial filter tool. This is very important. You have to invert this. By default, Lightroom has this work where it's the opposite of what I select gets affected, but basically I'm going to drag a circle or an oval in this area and then tell Lightroom anything in this oval, I'm going to bring the exposure up. And when I do that, I get a lot of detail in the background. Specifically, I want to bring some detail in these columns and these buttresses here, these arches, and then I'm still losing some detail over here. So what I'm going to do in this radial brush mode is hit new, and that's going to hide this little widget here and let me click a new circle. And again, I'm doing the same thing. I need to make sure this is inverted, and then I am going to drag my exposure up a little bit and show you the doorway that you see. If I were to create a virtual copy of this and then reset one of these, you'll see what the before and the after picture look like, and it's really cool. You might have to click on black and white mode in order to get rid of the color information. Let me show you when I look over here. If I just straight up go from a color image, I click this button and I start dragging my sliders, this ends up looking really weird because I get all these yellows in here. And so if you do get something like this, at the very top of your basic controls, you can go black and white your image, and then again go in here and create your effect. So I'm going to bring the exposure up. I'm inverting the mask, and I'm going to go show some areas and get more detail. I hit new, I drag another one, trying to bring some more detail and exposure to this really contrasty but kind of neat looking image. I can move this around or make it bigger if I need to. That always is an option. Something around there looks really good. At the bottom of this I can hit close, and that's basically it. So what I'd like you to do today is to play with this tool and try to make as many of these as you possibly can. Tomorrow I'll teach you the next technique, which is combining images, but this should probably be enough for today.